Good day and welcome to our 3T at T webcast series, the series of webinars we do at the third Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time every month. Our July topic is Getting IT Ready for Recession. My name is Alan Falcon. I'm CEO of Cumulus Global, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy week to join us here live or to be watching this webcast on demand. A couple of housekeeping items before we dive into the topic. As always, the audio is muted to prevent any background noise disruptions. So along the top or right-hand side of your screen is a questions icon. Open that. There's a questions window. It's the best way for me to track the questions that have been asked, that I've gotten them all answered. And I'll try and do it in line, but we have time for Q&A at the end as well. As with all of our webcasts, the session will be recorded. We'll send you an email once it's up. It usually takes us less than 24 hours to process the audio and video, get everything squared away and up there. This webcast, as well as our Coffee and Clouds webcast series, are only two of several resources that are generally available in our resource center on the website. As always, I invite you to stop by cumulusglobal.com, click on resources, and check out what we have to offer. We update on a fairly regular basis. In fact, there was a new blog post this morning on some important small business security issues. So check out the Resource Center and let us know if there's information you're looking for, and we'll help you find it as well. So we dive into it. It's really, the impetus for this session this week was the number of business reports on whether or not the U.S. economy and the world economy is heading into a recession. Certainly inflation is an issue for many individuals and many small businesses. And so when you think about whether or not, and even this morning on National Public Radio, there was a news story where some analysts are saying we could be in recession within 2 years. Others think it's 6 months to a year, 12 months away. Others feel like we might be heading there more faster and more severely. And others think we'll, have slow growth, but we'll dodge the recession bullet. In any case, it's economic uncertainty and the feeling of a downturn. Drops in business confidence, drops in consumer spending that has a ripple effect into the business and B2B communities. So when we start off, think about how might a recession impact your business. Think back to 2008, think back to other downswings in the U.S. and the world economy. And, really, worst case scenario is your business threatened, right? When the economy hits hard times, do customers cancel or delay orders or activity in a way that significantly impacts your cash flow, your ability to operate? And is it possible or is it difficult for you to trim costs without impacting the service due of your customers? For other businesses, the impact of the recession is a little more uncertain. Customer demand may differ across market segments that you serve. And it could be, may not be, but it could be a good time to invest internally. For myself, for our business, we sometimes, fluctuate economic downturns between uncertain and a growth opportunity. But we work with a lot of companies who see downturns in the economy because the nature of their services, the demand will increase as the economy slows down, or they're in a business, where their services and what they deliver to their clients and customers are somewhat recession-proof. And so before we get into getting IT ready for your business, a little introspection from you about how might a recession impact your business? And therefore, that leads to the next question is how will your business adapt, right? And a lot of folks will knee-jerk, quick reaction, drastic cuts, staffing adjustments, service changes. The tech industry and some of the large providers are seeing some layoffs. In other areas, the tech industry is still hiring and, intensely short-staffed and having a difficult time finding the right talent. But is cutting and consolidation and shrinking how you would react your business to an economic downturn if it becomes severe? Or are you unsure where it's going to go, right? Are you in a wait and see mode? What's the impact of the economic change going to be on your business specifically? And do you have a good sense of what the key performance indicators or key external indicators are that will tell you when it's time to act and what those actions might be? Do you have the what if scenarios that you plan? So, for example, at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were looking at our business and thinking, people are going to be moving remote. There's going to be more demand for cloud services, but yet some of the markets we serve, particularly hospitality, travel, food service, restaurants, things of that nature could see a major impact, and obviously they did. And what's the net effect of that? We were uncertain. So we planned, multiple scenarios saying, if revenue drops by this much or this number of customers leave, we need to do X. If it's more, we need to do Y. If it's less, we can do Z. But coming up with those alternatives. If you're feeling uncertain, have you started thinking about those alternatives and how you might adapt? Or are you going to taking that step back and coming up with a strategic plan? We're going to look at, yes, economy's turning down, potential for loss of revenue. We need to trim expenses where we can, hopefully in a way that doesn't adversely impact ourselves internally and our operations or our staff or our customers. How are we going to communicate what we're doing and how we're weathering the storm, or what our actions are going to be, not only to our customers, but to our internal team as well? And is this the right time to make selective investment? We know a number of businesses who who saw reduction in activity during the COVID-19 pandemic, in the heart of the pandemic, and they saw that as an opportunity to undertake significant projects that would position themselves to run more efficiently and more effectively as the economy recovered. And using that model, are there things, if the economy slows down, if the pace of business slows for you, are there changes you want to make to your business? Are there selective investments you can make that, as the economy upswings, puts you in a better position to grow, survive, thrive, and be more profitable? And it's really thinking about those two big questions. What's the impact going to be on your business, and how do you see yourself at a strategic level and tactical level adapting your business that really come into play? And that can drive some of your IT-related decisions here. And so when we talk about adapting to economic uncertainty or an economic downturn, we see two aspects here. We've found some cute little flat icons for them. Obviously, the first is cost reduction. If you think your business is going to slow down, where can you save dollars out the door? Where can you preserve cash, lower your cash flow, reduce the necessary investments, all those activities that, reduce expense and help improve your bottom line. The second aspect, and the second strategy, if you will, that's key in adapting to economic uncertainty or a downturn, is value creation, right? And this is where you're not necessarily saving hard dollars, but you're improving external operations or increasing the value of what you do to your customers in a way where you might not increase revenue, but you might mitigate the amount of loss, or maybe you can increase revenue with it, or what you charge for services ends up being seen as having higher value than your competitors in the current market conditions, and it attracts net new business during the recession that can mitigate any loss or overcome or erase any loss you might have for customers who fail or severely cut back the goods and services they're buying from you. So as we go through a number of IT issues and ways you can get IT ready for recession, we're going to talk about it in terms of cost reduction and value creation. And so with that, we always want to think not just of the tactics, but take into consideration more strategic or a broader view, if you will. And so anytime you think about making a change to your business, and I probably don't need, this probably goes without saying, but you should take some of these strategic considerations, right? Is the change you're making, is the tactic you're going to use going to create limitation, or is it creating opportunity, right? And sometimes limitation is good and it's necessary. Other times you really want to go for the opportunity and set yourself up. There are times you want to do the opportunity, but fiscally, from a management standpoint or operationally, it's not feasible if the economy is uncertain or in a downturn. But understand the decisions we make, and as we look at getting IT ready for recession, are you doing something that's going to limit yourself, or is it going to create opportunities, or at least not prevent opportunities? Is the impact of the decision going to be near-term or long-term? And that impact question actually not only goes to the decisions you're making and the tactics, but your expectation of the economic uncertainty. Is this a near-term thing that's going to be relatively short in duration, or do you see it being a mid or longer-term issue that you need to adapt for? And then think about the changes you want to make. And is the impact going to be near-term or long-term? And maybe there's both, right? It's not uncommon to make a near-term decision that saves money in the short term, but limits your ability to expand or grow in the long term. And at times it's necessary to make those kind of trade-offs. Just be certain or be confident that you understand what those trade-offs are. What are the near-term and long-term impacts and consequences of any change or decision you're making? The next is a customer-facing change. Are your clients or customers going to see the difference when you make this change, whether it's in your commitment to them, their necessary commitment to you, the costs you're charging, what they're paying for your goods and services, and the actual goods and services you're offering might shift. And if so, understand how that might affect the customers and how they might respond. Again, they'll be doing that limitation versus opportunity, and they'll be doing near-term versus long-term impact assessment of any changes that you make that are facing to them when they look at the change and how your change is going to affect their business, right? Similarly, you should look internally. Is the change you're making going to impact individual or teams' roles and responsibilities? Is it going to impact processes and workflows? Now, in most instances, any change in IT is going to affect process and workflow. Some may also do the roles and responsibilities, and it's not to say that's a bad thing. In fact, it can be a great thing if it's done properly. And again, you're looking at the impact of the change and what you're trying to achieve with it. Is it just dollar savings, or is it also going to improve productivity? Is it going to help you better manage? Is it going to reduce the number of steps? Is it going to reduce your legal liability? There are all these impacts that happen, but internally, if people's roles and responsibilities might change, if processes and workflow change, then there's a whole management component of this as far as communication and support to make sure your people are on board, understand, and are able to adapt with the business and to actually help the business successfully adapt. So these are some strategic level considerations as we go back and think about cost reduction and value creation. So let's start looking at some of the IT changes you can make. And we always start with the cost reduction. We got the piggy bank going there. Eliminate redundancies and waste, right? When we talk about cost reduction, that's what we're really talking about. We're not talking about cutting necessary services. We're not, we've talked with companies who are like, we're expecting it to downturn. Can we drop the archiving service we have? And we'll point out, well, no, because you need that cost because you need archiving service for regulatory compliance given your industry. But that's not an area to cut, right? So when we talk about cutting costs, we want to focus on the redundancies and what some people might consider waste. And here are the most common ones that we see in small and mid-sized companies. And the first one is video conferencing. The vast majority of our customers all use Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, meaning they have Google Meets and chat rooms, and they've got Microsoft Teams available, included as part of their licensing that lets them do video conferencing and audio conferencing. Now, granted, on the Microsoft, depending on the license you have, you might need to pay extra for dial out, but both Meets and Teams allow for computer-based access and plain old telephone service dial into those meetings. And yet, well over half of our customers are still paying for additional conferencing service. They're paying for GoToMeeting, more commonly, they're paying for Zoom. And oftentimes to have multiple employees using Zoom. And sometimes it's an official company decision that they're going to say, you know what, we're going to use Zoom for meetings and pay for it, even though we have Meets or Teams. And other times it's individuals using a free account, bad idea, less secure, or a paid account and expensing it back to the company. We strongly urge you to assess the need for third-party apps and third-party meeting tools because there can be significant savings per employee and company-wide by eliminating any redundancy here. And what do we hear are the three big reasons? Well, customer preferences. And we've had companies say to us, well, we have Microsoft 365 and we use Teams, but we've got a handful of customers that really prefer Zoom. And so everyone who works with those clients has a paid Zoom account. And we look at a company of 40 people in this example, and 22 have Zoom premium accounts. Okay, so they don't get kicked out after 30 minutes, and they can do breakout rooms and some of the other fancy features, but it's there, right? And sometimes companies think they need specific features and functions like breakout rooms, but they don't always have them. And so when we hear, is customer preferences enough? One of the suggestions we'll make is you say to your customers, hey, we use Microsoft Teams. If you prefer Zoom, why don't you send the meeting link from your account? Okay, and that lets the customer use their preferred method, which hopefully they're paying for because it's the preferred method of meetings, and you can avoid that cost without creating friction, right? We also hear sometimes that you need special features or functions, like, Zoom is really good and was an early provider of breakout rooms, right? They're not the only service that does that now, okay? And so the question is, are you better off paying for a Zoom account or upgrading your Microsoft or Google license to get that feature into Teams or into Google Meets? Okay, and in many cases, upgrading your productivity suite is a more cost-effective way to get those features and functions than having a second product that you're paying for and a second set of licenses to pay for and manage. The second area where we see a lot of redundancies and oftentimes waste is file sync and share, right? And so between Google Workspace and Microsoft 365, you can share with clients or supply chain partners, internal, external people using Drive, share drives on the Google side, and OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams on the Microsoft side. Additionally, both productivity suites have the ability to create websites using SharePoint sites or Google sites and have form features. So for example, we've talked to companies who say, you know what, we're paying for Dropbox for Business because we need to, our clients need to get us files that are too big to send as an email attachment. Okay, not realizing that you can simply give that client a form where they can then upload the attachment directly into Google Drive, right? And you give similar capabilities on the Microsoft Productivity Suite as well, as far as other ways of transferring large files without having to invest in other service. And so you think about, Dropbox for Business or Box, some of these other file sync and share services, $15 a month per user on average adds up when everyone feels they need that capability because they haven't learned how to do the external sharing properly and manage the communications with customers within the productivity suite you have. And so our recommendation is always to limit other solutions to specific needs. So for example, HIPAA requirements, if you're in the pharmaceutical industry, if you're in the financial services industry, there are industry and regulatory requirements you need to meet as far as information privacy and protection. And there you need to layer on services to Google Workspace or Microsoft 365 or a separate file share solution for external file sharing is appropriate. And even then, it's limiting it to only the people who actually do the sharing, right? To get that capability at a minimum cost, right? And what we generally find is for most small, mid-sized businesses, they can be paying as much for redundant video conferencing and file sharing services as they do for their core Google Workspace or Microsoft licensing each month. And so, yes, we've seen instances where by consolidating back into the productivity suites, we've seen some customers save up to 50% on that part of their IT infrastructure. So it's not insignificant. Other areas that we see where you can eliminate redundancy and unnecessary cost is around shadow IT, right? And reining it in. Why? Because you've got individuals who are paying for subscriptions, probably expensing it back to the company for duplicate services. And sometimes it's file services like we've talked about. Other times it could be, voice service or a messaging app, or a project planning tool. Again, leverage components of your productivity suite and select those specific solutions as needed. The added advantage of really working to eliminate shadow IT is you can manage intellectual property better, right? And that you can improve your data security, privacy, establish ownership, all of those components that you need to protect your business come in as well as you shadow IT. And one of the ways people look at it, and they say, well, I go through accounting and see what, who we're paying, right? You can't just look at accounting and who you're paying. You've got to look at the company credit card statements and scan them. And if people are doing expense reports and expensing this stuff, whether or not it's on a company card, if it's on a company card, great, scan that. If not, you've got to scan the reports. If it just says reimbursement for software, you got to ask the employee what software or what service that is. And there are third-party tools you can integrate in your environment that'll do that scanning for you automatically and give you the data you want. It could save time and effort, but again, it's a cost, probably not necessary in most cases, but it is available out there. And so reining in shadow IT is a great way to do it, right? Another way is archiving unused accounts. And we see this all the time. Someone leaves the company, we think we might need their data, we leave their account in place, we may suspend it, but we're still paying for it. It's there. And so really deciding at a business level how long you want to hold on to past employees or unused accounts and information, and then decide how often you expect to access it and how you might want to preserve it. There are a couple of options here, right? So, within the Google Workspace service, for example, you can go to what's known as an archive user license. You can take someone who might be in your Google Workspace, have a Business Plus license, which lists at $18 a month. And if you they leave the company, rather than holding on to that $18 a month license, if you convert them to an archive user license, which gives you the ability to search and recall specific pieces of information, you're going to pay $4 per user per month, right? And so whereas Google Workspace licensing can range anywhere from, that with the vaulting that you need for archive user licensing can be anywhere from $18 to $30 per user per month. Those archive user licenses scale from 4 to 7. So savings there. Another tool you can use is if you're backing up, as we recommend, Google Workspace or Office 365 with one of the cloud backup services. Most of them give you the ability to do granular restores and to restore to an alternate user. What this means is someone leaves the company, you wait to make sure their backup's complete. You can now disable and remove their live account completely, stop paying for it, on the month-to-month plan or your annual renewal, whenever you're able to reduce your user count or reuse it for someone else you hire without adding an account, avoid the costs there. And that backup service then will hold that data indefinitely. And yes, you're going to pay for the backup service account. But again, Google Workspace licenses run from $6 per user per month to $30. A backup service license is going to run about $3 per user per month. So you can preserve the data online, make it retrievable by administrators or permission to other users for significantly less cost than holding on to the account. And of course, the other option is you can export the data and save it on local or on network or up in the cloud and eliminate the account and not pay any monthly fee to hold that data at all whatsoever. And so there's a lot of options with archiving unused accounts and past information, so long as you understand what your business need is and look at what you've done and needed historically, right? So we have companies that say, well, we need to hold on to past employees' data in its actual account for 3 years. And we're like, okay, how many times in the last 6 months have you gone into a past employee's account? And they're like, never, but. So really assess what the need is and what the expectation is and how normal or regularly or occasionally or hardly ever you're actually going to go into those archived user accounts. Okay, and that can help you decide how much to spend and what format you want it in. And finally, you can cancel unused services. And again, here, review invoices, credit card statements, reimbursements, and look for services that you don't need. So, for example, we've worked with clients, and we ran into this once internally as well, where we had subscribed to one of these data syncing, third-party data syncing services that, you can connect to the APIs from two systems that don't have their own connector and use it as a third-party connector. It was great and it worked. We got rid of one of those systems. We never went and turned off and unsubscribed from that data moving service. We spent money on it for 3 months before we realized, hey, we missed something here, right? So just, good due diligence. Every couple months, once a quarter, check to make sure that everything you're paying for is actually still being actively used and isn't just sitting there because someone needed it for a period of time. FYI, you should be checking your Google Cloud Platform and your Microsoft Azure or any other hosted or cloud environments you have for servers that were set up and run that are no longer, or resources that were set up and run and no longer needed, right? And you can scope and scale those services as well. So it's not just subscriptions, it's the scope of service you have in the cloud. Get rid of anything that's really not being used and you don't anticipate using. Now, shifting strategic gears, another way that we see companies able to both reduce costs in many ways and have a better value proposition, increase value, right, is with deploying a virtual desktop infrastructure, otherwise known as VDI. And what is VDI? Well, VDI is where your computing environment resides within the cloud, right? So within a cloud data center on a service like Google Cloud Platform or Azure from Microsoft, we build out a secure network that's secure and private to you with whatever servers and whatever desktops you need for your people to use to be able to do their work day to day. And so rather than, logging in and working directly from the laptop or the desktop in front of them, your employees come in and they either use connection client or a web interface, and they connect to this virtual desktop that's running. It's a true Windows desktop. It's running virtualized on a host server in the data center, in the cloud, and then connects to whatever other servers you need, whether it's file or application or database servers that you need that are also in the cloud. So effectively, this is a way to empty your computer closet, your computer room, or your data center, move it into the cloud, and give your people the advantage. And what's nice is today, this process isn't, it's manageable to set up and run with, file services, standardized apps, and, standardized profiles of systems as far as images go, and user profiles of who needs to access and what. And it comes in a couple of ways. On the cost saving side, we'll see when we move organizations from their computer room or their closet into the cloud, sometimes called a lift and shift, right? We're not rebuilding, we're not re-engineering. We're literally saying we're going to move it off your physical servers into a cloud service. And it's going to run there, it's going to look and feel the same. The only difference is when you boot up your computer in the morning, you're going to log in and connect to that remote environment, right? So where do we see the cost savings? We see it from reducing the number of systems you have and need. For most of our clients, when we lift and shift into the cloud, we eliminate the need for Active Directory servers, and we get the file servers migrated to the file services within the productivity suite. So for most of our companies, that's, clients, when we do that lift and shift, that's the elimination of 2 or 3 virtual servers that might be running on 1 or 2 physical machines in their computer room or in their computer closet right now. The other thing you get, and the reason you save money, is you get scalable services for things like storage and even the number of active systems running, right? So, clearly, if you're going to have 20 people concurrently logging in, the cost of the host hosting 20 virtual desktops is going to be significantly bigger than the cost of a host that is only, cost of a system that's only hosting 4 or 5 of those desktops, right? But the advantages with virtual desktop infrastructure is if I configure my environment where each host system is going to be hosting 5 virtual desktops, I can actually scale the number that are actually running, right? I don't need one big machine hosting all 20 up 24 hours a day, right? I can have one machine designed to host 4 that runs 24 hours a day. And when that 4th person logs in, I can always spin up the next one that'll host 4 or 5, right? And when the 8th or 9th person logs in, the next one spins up. And as people go to lunch or leave at the end of the day, the number of servers needed to host the virtual desktops and the actual work environment for my employees will scale up and down and save money. In fact, if no one needs to be on between 1 in the morning and 5 in the morning, I can pause the environment entirely and not have to pay for any of those resources for 4 hours a day. I'm cutting 1/6 of my cost off of the top, right? So scalable services is a way of saving money, and it's an advantage you have. I don't need to buy all of the desktop. When you buy a server that you think is going to last 3 to 5 years, you look at the amount of disk you're using, how fast it grows, and you buy the capacity you think you're going to need over those next 3 to 5 years. And so you have a lot of dollars invested in disk space, for example, that's sitting empty and idle, potentially forever, right? Meanwhile, in the cloud, we can scale that. You allocate the storage you need. When you need more, you allocate more. When you clean up, are able to reduce, consolidate, you scale it back and you pay for less. The third way that VDI helps lower costs is in extending the life for current desktops and laptops. And this is particularly important now, not only from capital and expense dollars out the door for your business, but even in, with the supply chain issues, being able to get new hardware is still a challenge and probably will be for the next 6 to 9 months at least, from everything we can tell. And so how does VDI extend the life of your current desktops and laptops? Because you're not relying on the power and memory of your laptop to do all the processing. You're only relying on that memory and the power of your CPU to provide the screen and the keyboard and the mouse I/O, right? The actual processing is being done on that virtual PC that you're connected to, that remote desktop that's running virtually on a well-designed server up in a cloud data center, connected to ultra high-speed network to whatever servers and services you need within that cloud service, right? So given that, you can extend the life of current desktops and laptops. It also gives you the ability to avoid hardware and software upgrades. On the client side, oftentimes we're seeing desktops and laptops as they need to be replaced, being replaced with netbooks and Chromebooks, right? Not a lot of disk, good memory, good screens, lightweight, highly portable, very effective, lower cost of ownership from the device standpoint, because all of the compute work and the heavy lifting is done in the cloud. And certainly moving to virtual desktop infrastructure eliminates the need for server purchases and the related purchases that go with it, right? So when we have we have a client that's got servers on site in their computer room or in their data closet, right? Or even their small data center. You've got the servers, you've got the racks, you've got the power conditioning equipment, you've got the HVAC you need to keep everything cool and well ventilated. And then you need your backup service. And most of the time, the backup service is another appliance or device that also needs power and HVAC that may have disk attached to it or other media attached to it. For local copies with offsite or cloud-based copies is better, but there's this whole infrastructure that we can eliminate. And so it's not just saying, hey, I don't want to go spend $4,000 on a new database server. It's the $4,000 on the database server, the time and energy to manage the hardware and the software and the updates on it. And then it's having the backup system in place that can connect to that database server, keep the local copy, get the web copy. There's a whole cascade. There's a reason why in the IT industry, for those of us who've been around long enough, remember, when a small business would need to upgrade their server, we'd call it a forklift upgrade, because they'd get their new server. It'd be a new chances are it'd be a new rev of the operating system. They need to upgrade the backup to be compatible. They would need new, virus protection in there. Maybe they need more availability. They need additional disk. It goes on and on and on. And we can avoid those expensive hardware and software upgrades. So there's short-term and long-term cost savings with VDI. Okay. There's also value creation with VDI. And this is important because when you look over a 5-year period, because you're moving from capital expenditure to operating expense, and it's harder to track the soft costs, right? When many people look at the cost of an on-premise server, they're like, well, I bought it 5 years ago and it doesn't cost me anything, except for the time it takes to manage it, right? And the environment that you're supporting it, and the fact that you've probably had to do repairs and upgrades to it more than once. And yet maybe you expense those or Section 179 those, but those really are an amortized expense, okay, even though it was a capital outlay, right? So whereas with the cloud, you see that bill every month or every quarter, right? So what do you get that creates value when you move from an on-premise network and servers and applications into the cloud? First thing you get is improved operations, better access. And really this sort of goes hand in hand with the remote hybrid, right? And the fact that, most businesses are going to have some form of remote or hybrid work, mixing remote users and on-premise, whether it's full-time or part-time, by role, by day of week, whatever. Having your systems in the cloud means remote access is simplified. Access is the same for everyone, whether you're in the office, on the road, or at home. Additionally, you get better security. Now, the reality is Microsoft and Google can do a better job of securing their data centers, networks, and servers than any of us can as small business owners. We don't have the money, we don't have the resources, we don't have the in-house expertise, and we can't necessarily afford all of the mechanisms that they have in place to protect our systems running within their environment. So you get a much more robust security environment with the ability to manage it to tailor access and security to your needs as a business. The second, so improved operations is huge because that does create efficiency, and it takes a huge headache off of you. And one of the questions we'll often ask is, you'll be like, okay, I have an IT resource who currently manages my database, and he goes in every day and checks the queues and does all this other maintenance on the database server so it runs and performs well. That's a mixture of software and hardware work. For those not familiar with it, that's great. You move that database server into the cloud where it's managed, where it's in a more robust environment, where you can scale capability for up and down, nominal cost, nominal savings, up and back. That person can now spend his time not on keeping the database server running efficiently. He can focus on generating reports, doing more data analysis to get more information out of the data you're storing, right? So improved operations on the infrastructure can free up resources to do higher value work that benefits the business operation, business decisions, and your bottom line. The second area that we see with virtual desktop infrastructure and value creation is resilience, right? That your cloud data centers are more resilient than your local office, right? Less susceptible to weather, disasters, power issues, storms, things of that nature, and easier to use, easier to create built-in continuity because there are redundancy features built into the environment that you can elect. Some of them are there automatically, others are there to that you can take advantage of for a nominal incremental cost. So, for example, having geographically redundant storage means that you can easily, by literally the flick of a switch, you can say, I want my data redundant, not within one data center, but in multiple data centers that are geographically separate. You've already created better resiliency. You've protected yourself from a data center failure, which would be on a disaster of massive scale, right? We've talked about remote hybrid and having that single environment. It makes it easier to onboard employees. It makes it easier for them to work. Their office and at home and remote experience are one and the same. Your support for them is the same, regardless of where they're working. And finally, you get expanded services and tools. And this is because the productivity suites you're using have capabilities, as well as there are apps and tools within the GCP, within the Microsoft Azure, within the AWS environment that you can leverage to expand your business capabilities. A great example that we use is for our customers on Microsoft 365, it includes Power BI for business intelligence. Well, if your SQL Server-based or SQL-based business apps are in Azure, you can access them directly by connector from Power BI in your Microsoft 365 environment. You don't need to go buy third-party tools to gather and build your data cubes and build KPI dashboards. It's all built in. It's part of the ecosystem. You can take advantage of that at much lower cost. So it creates this opportunity to do more with the resources you have in place because you're up in the cloud and you're not on-premise. So there's a lot of value creation opportunities there as well. So another area where we see value creation is reassessing the work. And what do we mean by this? Okay, in the 90s, it was business process redesign, Michael Hammer, some of the other guys who did the infomercials and the long form, demos on PBS during pledge drives. Today it's called digital transformation. What are we really talking about? Take a step back. If your business is slowing down, if you've got the bandwidth now because the economy is a little uncertain and things are moving a little slower, take that found time and review and streamline processes. How can we be more efficient? How can we, tap into what's there to be more efficient? And then expand the use of the productivity suite. This is where some additional end user training comes into play and some guidance. There are workflow and automation tools built in or that attach to your productivity suites. You've got project management capabilities. You've got scheduling capabilities are there. You've got more advanced communication tools that are available there. Take advantage of those apps and tools, whether they're part of the productivity suite or they're easy add-ons, to think about how you can work more efficiently and more effectively within your organization. Listen to your team, take the feedback, roll it out. Reassessing the works, we see a lot of opportunity to further integrate communications, which can lead to savings as well. Think about how you're using voice, email, messaging, and video in your business and what tools you're using. Let's consolidate those tools. Let's consolidate the way we do it and set a standard set of expectations for our team. And it sort of gets back to getting rid of redundant services, but it's more about practice and expectation and what workflow you want to be most efficient in your internal and your customer, your supply chain facing interactions. So another area where we see value, value creation, and I didn't put cost savings. For many companies, it is actually cost savings because cloud first, managed services, managed cloud services. That's what we mean by managed cloud services, right? Is that it's a managed service where we're consolidating your IT services into one overall service, one management infrastructure. We co-manage with you. When we leverage cloud to do it instead of on-premise servers and apps and equipment, we can do it at a much lower cost. So if you're using a traditional MSP, going to managed cloud service provider will save you money. If you're not there yet, yep, you may see, because the monthly fees, a slight increase in total cost, but there's value creation beyond that. And I already mentioned the consolidating of IT services. This is where you're going to be dealing with fewer vendors and responsible parties. The environment's coordinated, single points of management, clear delineation of responsibilities, well-defined services, whether operational, information management, security, privacy, all of those things come into play. And with that, you get better coordination, not only of the solutions being for integration, but better coordination in advice on decisions you make about what you need your IT services or what you want your IT services to be and to do for you and your business and your teams, which leads to better coordination of the services being delivered, less interruption, easier for employees to use, better help and support for your employees, makes them more efficient, right? And I mentioned the cloud first drives savings because you're paying for services instead of things. And overall, you can have improved PARs, which is performance, availability, reliability, and security. And we can get you better positioned on all four of those things by leveraging cloud infrastructure and environments and minimizing what's on premise and needed on premise to the bare minimum. And so when we talk about managed cloud services, it's not one size fits all. We have service levels designed to match your business needs, right? And so we start from essential up to premier. And when we start with essential, it includes our premium services, which is unlimited administration and co-management of your IT environment, unlimited technical support for administrators, and tier 2 end user support and services that go to support and services for your end users. We'll help them solve problems. We'll make sure they know how to do what they need to do. It's as much, hey, something's not right, fix it, as it is. It's even more so, how do I do X? Can I do Y? We help answer the how-to questions as well as and the what-if questions, as well as the something's wrong type of request. Our essentials includes, and it's really designed to be the bare minimum of what you need from a managed cloud service. So advanced threat protection for email, which stops the phishing and ransomware attacks the majority of the time, having backup and recovery, protecting the information you have in the cloud from accidental or intentional damage. Whether you're in a file server in your computer room or your files are in a file service like Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace or GCP or Azure, you need that backed up, right? Microsoft and Google rely on a shared responsibility model. They run the environment, they back up the environment to ensure the environment is available and working for you. How you manage and protect your data within their environment that they're providing for you to use is your responsibility. So if you want your files that are stored in the cloud to be safe from accidental or intentional damage or loss, then you need a cloud backup and recovery solution. And we offer different ones that can meet different needs for different businesses. Additionally, with our managed cloud services and all of our cloud services, if you have users with PCs or laptops that are critical, we offer not just a backup recovery mechanism, but a continuity solution for those devices as well. So hard disk fails or memory or screen dies on a laptop, your employee can literally go to any device with a web browser. We can spin up an image, a recent image of that laptop in a data center, in a cloud data center that can continue to work. The screen's a little smaller, might run a little slower, but they're up and running while we get the laptop fixed or replaced, right? So having that kind of backup is an add-on to the essential service and other services as well. Step up from take everything with essentials and we add web filtering and monitoring to prevent malware downloads and to block malicious websites and contents. We add DNS protections to prevent DNS attacks and DNS spoofing. And our managed DNS service really around preventing domain theft, protecting your email services, and improving your email deliverability. That becomes our basic managed cloud service, okay? And what we say is basic is the basic. Many businesses will pick basic. Our best value is our business tier of managed cloud services, which is everything in essentials and basic, plus we help manage your multi-factor authentication. This protects your identity and makes sure that your access to systems and applications is more secure. Multi-factor your employee gets phished, their identity is compromised, the attacker goes to use the identity. Multi-factor authentication more than 90% of the time will stop them from being able to do that. Right? We also help you manage local disk encryption so that, again, if someone gets into your environment, the information's encrypted, they can't access it. Or access it as easily. In advanced DNS services, this is where we go beyond our standard DNS services with added protocols and services that actually are designed to prevent phishing and business email compromise, other types of impersonation attacks, and we'll actually monitor and manage email deliverability and understand what, if we need to tune settings, things of that nature, make sure you're protected there. And finally, you take all of that and add in security, education, and awareness so users understand the risks and behaviors, and we test them for that understanding, and comprehensive device management, not just mobile device management, but your desktops and laptops as well, to ensure data is secure, recoverable, and we can kill a device if it's lost or stolen. That becomes our premier managed cloud services. So again, we tier it, we scale it to needs, we can adjust packages to meet specific business needs. We can add on services like document level and message level encryption, and active permissions management when needed. If you're in certain regulated industries, we can do limited access zones. If you're CMMC, we've got all of these capabilities to tune it. The key is that managed cloud services, we can deliver these services because we're leveraging cloud infrastructure. There are fewer moving parts we need to charge for. It's much more cost efficient, it's operationally efficient, and it gives you a more secure, more standardized, better performing environment. So I've covered a lot of ground. A reminder that the questions window is open. Feel free to ask any questions. But what's the action you should take away from this, right? And really, it's sort of like, okay, contact us. We want to talk to you, right? And you can go to bit.ly/CG intro call and schedule time with the cloud advisor. We'll sort of do a high level, quick assessment of your needs and then pull in the necessary parties, or scan that, secure QR code, and it'll take you right to an appointment scheduler. We want you to assess your risks and needs. Again, economic uncertainty, recession, some people think it's definitely coming, some say it's likely, some say it's possible, but we're not sure. And that often leads to retraction in and of itself. So what are the likely impacts to your business and your customers, and how do you want or need to adapt, right? Then what's the value proposition? What strategy you're going to use around cost savings and value creation over the next year or 2 years, and what tactics do you want to implement to bring those to bear? And what's your cost of doing nothing? If you do nothing and the economy tanks, what happens to you and your business and your employees? So then we'll help you plan your solution, right? Not all changes require investments and spend. Some are operational, some are procedural. We can help work through those. Our goal isn't just to say, hey, you need to spend money. It's really about, hey, there may be some spaces where you need and want to spend money to attain a capability that positions you better during the downturn and beyond, right? And so it's about smart analysis, selective investment, appropriate cost savings, where again, the short-term cost savings don't cripple longer-term needs or longer-term growth or survivability. And then once we have that together, we'll help you execute. So as a wrap-up, you can contact us email address, website, obviously it's cumulusglobal.com, bit.ly CG intro call. You can pick a time to schedule a conversation with one of our cloud advisors. Feel free to also contact me directly. My phone and email are on the screen. I will tell you I'm horrible when I don't pick up the phone of answering voicemail messages. So please send me an email. I don't have an admin assistant. I will read the email. I'll respond. I'll loop in whoever within the organization needs to help. And so on that note, I want to thank you all for joining us for the July 2022 third Tuesday at 3, otherwise known as 3TT Webcast series, Get IT Ready for Recession. Please reach out. We're here to help. Many times we can help you identify issues that'll lower your cost or improve your efficiency with little or no additional investment or spend. And so we're here. We're happy to help. Thank you for joining us, for taking time out of your busy day and week. And hopefully we'll see you here for our third Tuesday at 3 webcast series in August. Have a great day. I'm Alan Falcon. Have a good one.